Hello and welcome to Scott Bryson Beyond the Service. I hope you're doing well tonight. I was just going to take a couple of minutes to do a little bit more storytelling. I know you guys have been asking for that, so I'm going to oblige. I have a really bad memory, so I've had to go way back into the vault and think about some things that I can talk about without getting in trouble, because I don't want to go to prison. I don't think I'd last about a day. So I have a couple of lighthearted stories I'd like to tell. One of which takes me way back to the George W. Bush days. I went to PPD, which is Presidential Protective Division, in 2003, and I was there until 2009. I spent 5 years and 10 months with Bush and 2 days with Obama because I was on orders to transfer. So out of those 5 years and 10 months with Bush, some of that time, about half of that time, I was a shift agent. And President Bush at the time, he was probably, I guess he was in his early 60s. I was in my 30s. He had about 30 years on me. But the guy was a really good runner. And I had to train really hard because I'm not the biggest guy in the world, but I'm also not a runner. I'm not built like a runner. You know, I'm an old football player that has always been sort of strong and enjoyed the gym, but cardio is not really my thing, so I had to really work at it. And so I basically quit working out, and for about 6 months just ran, and I could do 7-minute miles, which to some people sounds really impressive. To me, it was a good feat. To some of you, like, that's nothing. I know some of the Marines out there running 6-minute miles and sub 6-minute miles. I wasn't that guy, but I had to work at it really hard because I wasn't going to be outdone by a guy 30 years older than me. Not to mention, I'm thinking to myself, okay, if they're going to pay me to PT, I'm going to do it. Like, I don't want to be the guy sitting in the truck having to watch. That's just not my personality. I want to be the one doing whatever the thing was, right? I don't want to be sitting in the car because I'm out of shape. So I trained really hard to run with Bush, and I could do 7-minute miles. And what he would like to do is torture us when we would go down to the ranch in Crawford, Texas. He would wait till it became 100 degrees, and then he would go out for his run. He had a thing called the 100-degree club, and I'm in that, and you had to be able to run from start to finish with him. He usually did about 3 miles, and we were doing it in 20 and a half. I don't know, sub 21. We weren't setting the world on fire, but for a person like me, it was good. And he was just real competitive. One day, he liked to talk a lot of junk, which we loved, and he was talking smack, and this one guy he didn't know was a former Tier 1 operator who had come over to the service a little bit later in his career. He'd done a lot of time at a particular outfit, and he came over to us and was basically a ringer. You know, he was just super physically fit. And so one day, I guess after the president had talked some junk to him the day before, he showed up in his combat boots and shorts and a t-shirt. And President Bush was like, "What's that?" He said, "That's your handicap." So he was respectful, but he gave it back to him, and Bush loved that. He's pretty cocky, you know, but I liked it. You know, type A guys like that kind of stuff. It's like locker room atmosphere. But there's a level of respect, too. He's the president of the United States, so you're only going to go so far. And, of course, you're always going to let him get the best of you. But I thought that was funny when he put that back on him, and he loved it. He ate it up. And then he got to the point where his knees really gave out on him. He was getting older and, you know, running literally 7 days a week. I don't think he took a day off. His knees gave out, so we started mountain biking. And I was able to mountain bike with him as well. I enjoyed that. It was still hard because I don't think it was as hard as the running, but it was hard because we would go out for an hour and a half, 2 hours versus 21 minutes, you know. The mountain biking was fun, though. It was very competitive. Most of us were former athletes that were doing that, or former military type guys. One time we were in Maine, and my friend Frank, I don't know if you're watching this, but Frank was a big dude, and he played in the NFL. But for a big guy, he was in shape. Now, he couldn't do the running, but he could do the biking, okay? And the biking was hard, too. But Frank was this real competitive guy like I was, and we were always kind of jockeying for pole position, which is kind of just juvenile, right? Because you got the leader of the free world right here, and you're riding right behind him, and there's flanking and different things. But we were always kind of fighting for pole position. And Bush would always, because Frank's big, like Frank's was big. He's probably 6'4", 6'5", 260, 270. So he was a big guy. And I'm like 6 feet, 230. So, you know, we're bigger guys. And he would always look to see if he saw a bigger guy, he would try to drop him. He would go extra hard to try to drop you because he wanted to bust your balls, basically. And I wasn't having that, and Frank wasn't having that, because a lot of the guys were smaller, and because the cardio was hard. But we were able to do it, and it was fun, and we would always stay right up on him, because he'd always check. He was always looking over his shoulder, you know. And after about 20 minutes, you know, he would ease up, and I can hear him saying it right now. He's like, "Wow, that was a good heart starter." I mean, we were getting after it pretty hard. He was really going really hard for the first 20 or 25 minutes. And then, of course, we would, you know, do another hour or so, and it got a little easier because he'd always try and drop the new people or the big people. Well, as it turns out, we were in Maine. It was awesome. This was an awesome trip. We were in Maine, and we were doing some ride through like the Evergreens up there. And there was a double track and a single track, you know, so the single track was just for the bikes, but the double tracks, the gators could go down, and that's where the mill aide and the supervisor would be, the doc and all that stuff. But there's certain parts of the woods where they couldn't go, so they had to kind of parallel or whatever. And I'll never forget, President Bush hit a stump or a rock or something with his front tire, and he flipped over the handlebars. I was right behind him, and Frank was right beside of me. And I don't know if Frank wrecked or not, but I know I did, because I almost ran over him. Like he flipped like that fast. And I had to do like this so I didn't run over the president. That would be bad. And I wrecked and tore my bike up. And Frank went left. I don't know if he wrecked. I think he did too, but I don't remember. But my gears were jacked up. One of the brakes had been bent in. Bush was laying on the ground, and I was worried about him because he didn't get up right away. And he had this massive contusion on his thigh. He hit the ground so hard. And I don't know if his leg hit that rock or a stump, but he had this massive bruise on his thigh immediately. The doc came up and everything. But the thing I liked about that guy, politics or not, you know, forget politics for a second. We're talking about just a type A dude. He laid there for a minute, and I can remember him saying, "Just let me lay here for a minute." And I was like, oh, he's knocked the wind out of himself pretty good. That man laid there for a minute or two, maybe 5, probably less than 5, I'd say a minute or two, shook it off, got back on his bike, and we finished the ride. And I was banged up a little bit too, but not like he was. And I didn't even know that my bike was messed up at the time. I'm glad that I didn't try to switch out of one of the front sprocket, because it was jacked up, and I would have been out. I would have been out of the game. My back gears worked, but my front sprocket was jacked up. But I didn't know it at the time, so I just always kind of kept it in that middle ring. It just was easier. But anyway, we finished the ride, and the takeaway for me is, you know, I almost ran over the leader of the free world, which is kind of a funny story to tell people. And the big takeaway was, this man has grit. I guess he still does. He did. He got up, and we probably rode for another hour or something. And I don't know, that was always, that stuck out in my mind. At that time, I probably did agree with his politics. You know, I'm conservative by nature. I don't even think I'm a Republican anymore. I think I'm just a conservative Christian. So I'm not even sure I would consider myself a Republican. So I probably don't agree with some of the ideology that the rhinos and what he represents, the war on WMD. I think all that was probably a farce now looking back on it, but it's easy to do looking backwards. But, you know, I did enjoy my time with him. He was a man's man. We would go out cutting down cedar trees and burning them and fishing, and he didn't do any really hunting or whatever, but he was an avid physical fitness guy. And I'll never forget when he got out of office, they immediately, of course, Obama comes in, and he's tall and thin and stuff, and he liked to play basketball, and the news media dubbed him the fittest president ever. And I'm like, there's no way, because I'm pretty sure Obama was still smoking cigarettes at that time, which they kept hush hush. For who cares? You smoke, whatever, who cares? But because he was tall and thin, the media dubbed him the fittest president ever. And I'm like, no, W would run circles around him because I've seen it firsthand. But anyway, I just wanted to share that story with you guys. We've got some more in the vault that I'll have to dig up. I'll tell you sometime about the time he was fishing and he stepped in a fire ant hill. That was pretty funny. There's always little moments of humor. He has a very serious job. The Secret Service has a serious job, so sometimes you have to let off a little steam, and there's always some little funny moments along the way that I'll continue to share with you guys.